One. Hello, everybody. My name is Scott Kelly. I am the founder and CEO of Black Dog Venture Partners and your host for today's VC Fast Pitch event. We've got a great group of presenting companies, some great sponsors, some outstanding investors, and some great people just listening in. So what I'm going to do is I am going to share my screen and just kind of go over our agenda for today. So bear with me 1 second. Okay. You should be able to see my screen now. If you can't, bear with me. Wait for the screen to come live. Oh, uh-oh. Uh-oh, I'm getting the blue circle of death. Bear with me. The blue circle of death. All right. Oh, no. Is everyone still there? If someone's still there, I can't see you. Unmute. Someone unmute yourself.
We're here.
Okay.
We're here,
All
Scott.
right. All right. Bear with me. Technical difficulties here.
Yeah, your face is frozen.
Oh, well, that's okay. I have a face for radio. All right, everybody. Oh, we're going to do this again. They're going to make this.
Technology, eh?
This is where we find out one of the pitch company has a alternative internet connection.
Going to be a great recording. I think I might skip through this bit.
Thank you for that brief commercial, Zoom. All righty. Now we're ready to go. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through, like I said, our presenters today. And we've got our good friend from Flip Invest. Are you there?
Right here, Scott.
He's probably winning the award for being the farthest away. He is probably somewhere in the Tampa Bay area right now, but he came all the way from Denmark. He did a great presentation last night, and he's going to share a little bit about Flip Invest and a great opportunity to get in front of a lot of investors. So, Laurits, I'll let you take over the helm.
Thanks, Scott. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen 1 second. Hold on, everyone. Right. So for some of you on the call, you may have heard of Flip Invest already. For some of the others on the call here, it might be worthwhile just going top down, explaining what that is. Before I get started, I just want to say a quick few words about myself. So my name is Laurits. Yes, I came from Copenhagen, Denmark, but I work for something called Flippa, which is a global company headquartered in Melbourne, Australia, but with an office here in the States, in Austin. Before I was working here, I was doing my own thing. I founded a startup in Berlin that was somewhat competing with Flippa itself. So Flippa decided after 3 years to acquire the company. And so I was acqui-hired in the process. And I'm now doing something called Flippa Invest, which I'll get to in a moment. But before I was a startup founder, I was an associate at BlackRock for a couple of years. And I was also with an venture incubator in London called Rocket Internet. And Flippa itself is known for its core business, which is a marketplace to buy and sell businesses. So if you are looking for a buyer of your company, you can go on the marketplace and get connected with 1.6 million or nearly 2 million buyers registered. And that is how it started in 2009 as a marketplace for buying and selling businesses, and then now has evolved to a few more things. With that pool of buyers, we've been able to locate 80,000 accredited investors with a lot of intent to invest and buy businesses ranging different categories from SaaS businesses to AI businesses and other types of companies. And we're now turning this pool of buyers and their intent data into a new platform called Flippa Invest, where you're not acquiring businesses, but you're investing in growing businesses. And this platform for fundraising comes complete with a bunch of different functionality, matching with investors, data integrations, a deal room for securely sharing sensitive data, signing safe notes, signing share purchase agreements, and actually taking investment through SPVs and directly. And so the data integrations that we support, if you're raising funds, you can show in the deal room, you can show your metrics from Stripe, you can show your metrics from QuickBooks and other analytics that you wanna display. And we also do, as I mentioned, the AI investor matching. So you don't actually have to bring any investors. We have the investors, 80,000 of them actually, that we will match with your round, with your business based on their investment criteria, based on the metrics of your business. And we have the dynamic deal room for securely sharing files, P&Ls, etc. And in the deal room, you can also view the profiles of the investors that are interested in investing. They'll sign an NDA prior to entering your deal room, and then you can take it from there, engage and close the investors one by one. And then you can sign LOIs, you can sign safe notes, as I mentioned. And then finally take payments through 2 different options. I'll get into those options in just a bit. So just to summarize, we have 80,000 accredited investors that we built up over the last 16 years, brought them onto Flippa Invest. And we have a few different types of investors that I just want to mention briefly. Most of them are high net worth individuals. So founders, ex-founders, current operators of businesses. So ideally, or in a nutshell, your peers looking to invest in other growing businesses. And then we also have a few private equity firms and family offices. But important to mention is that we don't have VCs. Scott's network is probably a better source and a better path to discovering venture cap investors. we have a different type of investor that are not necessarily looking for the next DoorDash or the next Uber, but more looking for thriving online businesses, SaaS companies, mobile apps, and the likes that are not necessarily going to be moonshots. But I mean, if they turn into moonshots, great. But they're looking for traction. That's the important criteria here. So when we go through the investment criteria, most of them require you to be US registered. We require you to be US registered and being a digital business. And then also having growing revenues. And that's the traction that's really important for our investors is you're not pre-revenue, you actually have revenues. And we can go low, like you can have 5,000 a month in revenue, and that's enough, but it's important to show that you actually have customers and you actually have traction. And then the kind of band that we're looking to kind of support in terms of round sizes is between $50,000 and $1 million. Now you can have a bigger round and you can allocate a portion of that to Flippa Invest, but we don't support you putting a $10 million funding target on the platform. And we would rather kind of stay conservative, aim for maximum $1 million from Flippa Invest, and then of course we allow you to oversubscribe if there's more interest. So those are the three eligibility criteria if you want to raise on Flippa Invest. And here's a testimonial from one of the founders that raised $250,000 on Flippa Invest. And he was very happy not having to do cold outreach, but having investors come to him. And you can read more about that on the website. So how does it work? One, you apply to raise. So you basically request by putting a few details about your business on the website, submitting that. We'll have our team review it. And if we think there's a fit, we'll get on a call, and then we'll start the onboarding. And then eventually, after preparing all the material for your round, we'll then launch it to our 80,000 accredited investors on the platform. And we'll do all the solicitation, all the marketing. You don't have to do anything. And then once you start seeing investors enter your deal room after signing NDAs, that's when you can engage with the investors and you can close them one by one to collect capital. And that's the final step. We have two options for raising capital on the platform. The one to the right here on the screen is what we call a group raise. It's where you use an SPV, a special purpose vehicle, to roll up all the investors into one line item on your cap table. That's a more managed service that we offer, where we do all the filings with the SEC. And then the alternative to that is just a more like do-it-yourself direct raise, where you onboard each investor onto your cap table without pooling them into one entity. So those are the two flavors that we do fundraising on the platform. And there's different pricing with each of those options. And those are displayed also on the website, but you can see them right here. We have a flat fee to launch your round, and then we take a platform fee as a percentage of your capital raised. If you do the SPV, it's 4% of capital raised. If you do the direct raise, then it's 2.5%. But the round launch fee, which is the flat fee, is fixed regardless of which method you use. So I'm happy to obviously connect after this Zoom call. You can reach out. You can go to the website. You can see that the business is currently raising rounds on the platform at flippa.com/invest. And I'm happy to obviously get connected via Scott after the call. But or take any questions here if we have time, Scott. You be the judge of that.
Yeah, while we do this, we'll take a couple of questions. I think the best way is obviously to engage with them offline. But for the sake of today, if you have a question, what I'd like you to do is a couple of things. One, make it a short question. Don't tell me about your business. Ask a question. And if you have a question, you can use the raise hand function. There's a little hand on the bottom of your bar. Use the raise hand function. I'll take 2 or 3 questions. And then we're happy to, we're going to move on after that. So if you have a question, you can use the raise hand function in chat and I can call on you. So, alrighty, Nika, go ahead.
Hi, Scott. I have a question. Great presentation. Who is the ideal customer for this product?
Good
Who is it good for?
So it's good for digital businesses with growing revenues. That's kind of the ICP, you could say, of our investors. That's what they're looking for. You have to think about the type of investor that we've attracted over the last decade and a half. It is not your typical venture capitalist investor. It is more of a private equity type investor that is looking at, okay, what's your P&L? Do you have revenue? Is it growing? Can you show me the future opportunity that you're chasing as well as the past performance? So I would say if you're pre-revenue, it's not really a fit. But if you are like a software business or a mobile app business or an e-commerce or any other type of online digital type business, it's a great fit for you to get connected to 80,000 investors that are potentially going to invest in your round.
Great. We'll take 2 more questions.
Thank
If you have a
you.
question, thank you. If you have a question, use the raise hand function. We'll take 1 or 2 more. So it's that little hand on the bottom. Nika seemed to do a very good job finding it. All righty. All right. Why don't we do this then? Again, Laurits, thanks for being on the call today. Again, you can reach out to him at flipainvest.com/invest, or reach out to me via email, and I'm happy to coordinate an intro. So thanks for being on the call, and have safe travels back to Denmark or the next location you're going to.
Thank you, Scott.
Awesome. So with that, the next part of what we're going to do now is we typically like to talk to a few of the investors, kind of get a sense of what they're investing in, how they invest, and then ask them a question about what they're looking for in presentations today. I do want to do a special shout out to a good friend of mine, Doug Nishoff. He actually works for USF and runs a venture capital fund. He was instrumental of bringing several of our presenters today. Doug, are you there?
I am here. Thanks for the shout out, Scott.
Awesome. Thanks for coming, Doug. So a couple of things. Maybe you could share a little bit about what you're doing with Intelligence Ventures. Maybe talk about some of the not specifically, but what you're doing at USF, and then tell everybody what you want to hear in presentations today.
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to start with my main focus, which is University of South Florida. There, I have the pleasure of leading the venture development efforts within the university. I have a really cool job. I get to work with all the startups coming out of there. So I see a couple of my friends from USF tonight, here on the call today. So thank you so much for being on the call. I've had the pleasure of knowing Scott for about 2 years now. I first met him attending a VC Fast Pitch event, and they're always very well run. So I appreciate what he's doing. But my role within the university is simple. We have, specifically within the tech transfer office, we have over 600 inventions that are, for lack of better words, ready to become businesses. So if anybody is an entrepreneur in the audience and you're looking for your next big thing, please do reach out to me. I'll drop my information in the chat, and I'm sure Scott can also connect us one or the other. But it's a great way to just find something that has been validated and spent 5 or 6 years in the lab and now is ready for action. The other thing that I do, I also run a very small venture capital fund called Intelligence Ventures. We actually just launched 2 weeks ago. It is a $1 million fund investing in the intersection of artificial intelligence and healthcare. So we look at 4 buckets. It's biotech and pharma tools, medical devices, diagnostics, and healthcare SaaS. I actually met with my LPs yesterday. We're getting ready for our first close May 31st and getting ready to write our first check in June. So looking forward to what's next.
Awesome. Doug, so I'm sure you may stay on for a little bit. With the presenting companies today, what are the key things that you want to list here from these presentations as an investor?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I cut out there.
Sure. What do you want to hear from the presentations today as an investor?
When I look at companies, as an investor, I'm a seed stage investor. We care mostly about the founders, more so than anything else in the ability to pivot. One of the stories I always like to tell is the story of Slack, which is a communications channel that a lot of you already use. People don't realize that was a video game. But they raised $17 million to build a video game that really badly failed. And this was during the COVID era when everyone was trying to work remotely. And so they went to their investors with their tail between their legs and said, this video game is not working out, but we built this really cool communications channel. Can we pivot? And it's now a multi-billion-dollar company. So to say, it had nothing to do with the technology. It had nothing to do with anything other than it was really smart and driven founders. And that's what I look for.
Fantastic. Thank you. So for our investor panel, so I'm going to introduce a handful today in the beginning and maybe introduce them throughout the call today. But if you are one of our investor panelists, there's a lot of people on this call. Just use the raise hand function. and I will call on you to introduce yourself. But I am going to introduce an old friend of mine from Arizona, if he's on the call. David Blackwood, you there?
Yes. How you doing, Scott?
Thanks for coming, David. So, David, why don't you share a little bit about your work in the angel space, what you're doing at Canyon Angels, and then talk a bit about what you want to hear in presentations today.
Well, I've been in a number of angel groups, and I'm a founding board member of our school's angel group. Grand Canyon University now is Canyon Angels, and we put in some millions of dollars over the past several years into businesses. Really, what we look for are people that are providing rational forecasts and focus. You know, people approach and say they have like 8 great revenue streams, and we always say, pick your best one for the next 2 years, right? Just go nail their best revenue stream, right? But we look at people that are rational. I talked to someone about 3 weeks ago, and they're a concept, and they wanted $100 million valuation. It's just, you can't really talk to people like that. So the key thing for me is we've always gone back to, we bet on jockeys, not horses, right? We like to see the management team, and we like to see the experience, and we like to see the setup is proper, that they actually have a real business, and the people are going to be able to get it over the finish line. So that's really kind of things we look for, Scott.
Fantastic. Thanks, David. Any other investors on the call that want to share a bit about themselves, you can raise your hand, or we can have you talk about yourself during Q&A. So I know there's several on the call. They're just kind of some being shy at the moment. We'll catch up to them a little bit later. So, all right, let's do this. What I'd like to do now is kind of get to our core presentation. So what I'm going to do now is we've got Dr. Lisa. Dr. Lisa, welcome. You want to share a little about yourself and what do you want to hear today?
Yeah, so I'm in the space sector, everything dealing with space mobility and transport. I'm also an interim president for Space Force Association in South Florida.
Awesome.
So we're uprooting Landstronaut Ventures that has a lot to do with operations and logistics for spaceports, as the state of Florida has become Space Florida. So feel free to reach out to me.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Now, are you investing in these ventures, or what's your role?
We'll be investing in these ventures.
Awesome. So obviously we've had some interesting companies today. I'm not sure this really dialed into space. What would you want to hear from the entrepreneurs presenting today?
Just the well-roundedness, because we like open systems and being able to build on stack. It's kind of like the story that the previous presenter was talking about, being able to pivot and really hone in on the core infrastructure of what's needed for space mobility, intelligence, and being able to understand the tech world is what we're looking for.
Fantastic. Awesome. Thanks for joining us today. All righty. What we'll do now is we're going to kind of get into our investor presentation, our company presentation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw them into chat one more time in their order of presentation. So, as I mentioned before, we're going to start off in just a minute with Eric Bush from Dayones App. Then we'll have Christian at the Healthy Aging Company, SLBST Pharma, SPKL, Quantum Silicon Clocks, MediMirror, and then Nick will close out our presentations today. So let's do this. So a couple things, just so you know.
You're coming back.
Here are the rules. I'm sorry. Hello? So, okay. If you're not speaking in our call, please mute your mic. Thank you. Awesome. All right, Eric, are you there?
I'm here, Scott.
All righty. So what we're going to do, Eric's going to share his screen, his presentation slides in just a moment. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to be here with my clock at 5 minutes. Would you get your slides up, Eric?
All right.
And then basically Eric's going to get exactly 5 minutes. I'll count him down. I'll put 30 seconds into chat. And then you, after his 5 minutes, we're going to do some Q&A. All righty. You ready, Eric?
Can you see my presentation?
I can. It looks great. All righty, Eric. 3, 2, 1, go.
All right. What is Dayones Live? a direct-to-fan engagement tool built for live events. It allows artists to deliver autographs and messages exclusively to fans in attendance, turning live moments into lasting personal connections. It creates an intimate one-on-one moment between artist and fan, even when shared with thousands. With Day Ones, artists can capture up to 92% of their audience at every show, create premium sponsorship inventory, and boost merch sales by 40% or more. We deliver a direct line to the artist's biggest supporters. No third-party tracking, no middlemen, just complete control of their Day One's army. The problem is events without Day One's live. There's no way to reach out and touch your audience. Those high-energy moments on stage are reduced to a missed marketing opportunity. The fact is, most fans never even get close to the artist, let alone interact with them. Fans often leave craving more. The worst part is, the artist has no direct access to their biggest supporters. We change that. The solution is, with a single tap, artists can send high-quality digital autographs to their entire audience. They can build a verified group of super fans they can reach anytime. It's so easy and built to drive recurring revenue. We can make every fan feel seen, reward and recognize their biggest supporters to spark deeper loyalty and brand support. What makes Day Ones different? Every fan gets the experience. No one's left out. Turn the autograph pick into premium merchandise inventory, instantly available for digital purchase and embedded into the live event experience. The autograph drop is everything. It's also the most valuable ad space in the building. For example, tonight's autograph is brought to you by Pepsi. We have viral growth potential. The real question is, who wouldn't want an autograph from their favorite artist? We're aiming to become an essential amenity at concerts across the globe. All right, here's some competitive, this is our competitive edge and comparable valuations. As you can see, community and fan base both have really high valuations, but they miss on key features tied to the live event experience. We're backed by IP and built for smarter, faster growth. All right, our go-to-market and traction, we have real demand and a scalable model. The patent rights and trademark are secured. The autograph drop was stress tested with 30,000 virtual users, meaning we can get an entire stadium. Upcoming activations include a tattoo convention. We expect around 5,000 attendees and to convert roughly 50%. We have another potential activation with Stephen Marley on the Traffic Jam Tour 2025. 21 shows, 75,000 plus attendees. We expect to convert around 51,000 new users in 5 weeks. With this raise, we're aiming for 150,000 new users. This will position us to raise the Series A at a projected $50 to $75 million valuation within 12 months. Our market research and survey results. When asked if they would download Day Ones for an autograph at the show, 63% of fans said yes, 29% said maybe, and a mere 8% said no. We project 50 to 80% engagement based on this feedback. All right, the team, we didn't just build the platform, we invented it. With deep passion and experience, we're the right team to scale Day Ones into a leader in fan engagement. And most notably on our team, we have Hakeem Abbas. He is a former senior developer at Facebook. He built the entire back end, and we have really great tech. Following Isaac, Jesse, these are both US servicemen, very disciplined and very motivated. Myself, I'm the CEO, patent creator, and the visionary for Day Ones. This is my passion project. And as you can see, Day Ones is available on both platforms right now. The ask, we're asking for $500,000 on a safe at a $5 million valuation cap. Our potential activation with Stephen Marley alone could bring 50,000 new users in weeks, justifying a $20 to $30 million short-term valuation. The use of funds, we're going to lock in activations with artists who can drive user growth and improve scalable engagement. We're going to support these activations to ensure success at events. We're projecting $600,000 in merch-based revenue this round, based on 1 in 3 users converting a $40 average order value. Day Ones can earn 30% of these transactions through the app. Revenue will accelerate user acquisition, driving a scalable, repeatable business model.
All right,
change-
Eric.
Yeah, bro.
Let's you're at 5 minutes, so awesome. If you have a question for Eric, you can use the raise hand function. That's that little hand, little high five at the bottom of your screen. And so Eric, I got a couple of questions. I spent some time in the music industry and we've had some conversations. You've got a really good technology team. What is going to be your marketing strategy? Who are you going to bring in to market it? And how are you going to sell this product? I know who you're going to sell it to, but how are you going to sell it?
Okay, that's a good question. Well, right now we've already been working on our industry connections, and we've been making a lot of headway. And like I said, we're in talks right now with Stephen Marley, who is interested. We're still trying to settle down on a solid number, but he's interested in using the app. And like I said, from there we can have organic growth. If it works for one artist, it will work for them all.
And
That model will keep repeating itself, you know, and artists are all friends. They all talk to each other. You know, if we get Stephen Marley, we'll probably get the entire Marley family. They're really close knit. And from there, we spread out into different genres. You know, reggae music is worldwide. So that has influence all over the world. And like I said, fans are going to start to expect day ones at the concert. They're going anyway. This is such a value add that fans are going to demand it, essentially.
Okay, thanks for that. So if you have a question, you can use the raise hand function. So I'd like you to share a little bit about the competitive landscape. You referenced them before. There's a lot of companies out there trying to connect with the fan and obviously sell them products or services or monetize that. Maybe share a little bit more about why yours will have better traction and better engagement, than others.
Well, yeah, our method patent, I invented it, I wrote it, I got it issued within 7.5 months. It was a great process. We have the competitive edge with our IP. You know, it really captures elements that are essential for this whole process, right? Creating that one-on-one moment. You know, that's everything. That's the difference between getting a plastic trinket at a concert with the artist's name on it, you know, versus something that people will hold dear. They watch the artist snap the crowd pic. Most fans will be in the picture themselves. You know, they watch the artist send the picture from their phone to the fan's phone. It really mimics that one-on-one interaction that is not available nowadays. And even if community and fan base try to work around the IP, I believe that the product will be far inferior to what we have already.
All right. Well, thanks, Eric, for that presentation. I'll be sending out his information post-event along with the recording. Thanks, Eric.
Thanks.
Awesome. Next up, we got Christian from the Healthy Aging Company. Are you there?
Yeah. Can you
All right,
see my slide?
I can see your slide. This is one of our first USF companies presenting today. So, all righty, Christian, you've done this presentation 1 or 2 times, so I think you know what's going to happen. Give me 1 second. I am going to count you down. 3, 2, 1. All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
Thank you, Scott. So I'm Christian Brechot, founder and chairman of the Healthy Aging Company, a company which is focused on diabetes and neurological complications, diabetic neuropathy and cognitive disorders, based at the University of South Florida in France, raising 5 million, already initiated the raise, with an exit likely at the end of 2028. So the problem, we all know that diabetes is a huge challenge. We also know that the neurologic complications are very severe. On the left, 30 to 50% of diabetic patients have diabetic peripheral neuropathy, terrible disease. And on the right, more than 80% of patients with Alzheimer's disease have type 2 diabetes, and both are really unmet medical needs. This is a huge market. Our solution, this is a new drug candidate with a completely new mechanism of action, briefly combining the resistance to insulin, restoring sensitivity to insulin, but also anti-inflammatory, metabolic actions, tissue repair. And the point is that we have extremely convincing and published and patented data showing the effect on diabetic peripheral neuropathy and on cognitive disorders, including Alzheimer. So this is important. We really position our molecule as complementary for diabetes to the GLP-1 receptor agonists, Ozempic, Zepbound, and the like. Of course, these GLP-1 agonists have been a breakthrough for treatment of diabetes, but they do not treat resistance to insulin. They may have muscular side effects, and they are not effective on the treatment of diabetic neuropathy and for the treatment of Alzheimer. In contrast, on the right, our molecule, ALF5755, restores sensitivity to insulin, restores muscular functions, improves diabetic neuropathy, improves Alzheimer's disease. So we have a very solid portfolio of patents, of course. We have, I believe, an interesting team from left to right. I'm a professor in medicine at the University of South Florida, former president in France of the Pasteur Institute, and also of the French NIH in CERN. I have also been involved in industry. I have been the vice president of a company, MediMirror Institute, and involved in many patents and biotechs. Gilles Amouyal and Paul Amouyal are both MDs and very successful entrepreneurs with several companies, and Christophe Magnan is a highly renowned scientist. We have two scientific consultants, Aurélie Joliet-Amedo at USF, who is here, who has generated all the data on Alzheimer, and Céline Cruciani-Goulier-Massy in Paris. And we have two very interesting advisors for the development of the drug. And finally, we have two extremely high-level scientific advisory boards on diabetes and neurological complications, both from the US and from Europe. So the path to development for us is very clear. On the left part, and this is really unique to early projects in the biomedical field, we previously showed the safety in human and some efficacy in patients with hepatitis B virus-related acute liver failure. So we know the GMP production. We already obtained INDs. Now, on the right, how are we going to develop the molecule for diabetic neuropathy and cognitive disorders? Well, we already had an interesting pre-IND meeting with the FDA. We know that with the 5 million, and it can be a stepwise investment, we will get the IND, we will initiate the phase 1/2A. With this, we know we will find the money, and we foresee that at the end of 2028, we go for an agreement with a pharma based on our results, either partnership or acquisition. So we had previously some successful funding, which led to the preclinical studies and the pre-IND meeting. We are applying for grant. We have a 2 million pending investment waiting for lead investors, and we just recently had an additional 0.5, so we are on good track. So finally, to conclude, we show a proven safety and efficacy, not only in animal models, but in human. This is a first-in-class molecule, world-class team. We target a huge market, and we have, of course, all the patents and regulatory available for diligence. Thank you.
Great job, Christian. I'm going to ask the two things in chat for our panelists and our attendees today. If you're an investor, if you have a question, use the raise hand function. But I'm going to ask another question. If you've had or know somebody with diabetes, use the raise hand function. So I've had several family members that have been impacted by that, and honestly, I'm predisposed to it. Tyrone, obviously, there's one. So, Christian, let me ask you a question. I've been doing a lot. I've been hosting a podcast called the Emerging Managers Podcast, and it really focuses on different trends in investing. And I was on a call recently with a healthcare investor, and they talked about two really interesting things. One, how AI is impacting drug discovery. So how are you applying that kind of technology with the work you're doing today?
Well, that's very important question, actually. What we did is that I went back to some scientists working with AI and based on the sequence of our molecules. And for example, the question we asked was whether or not the full molecule and the full spatial organization is necessary, or you would have some segments of the molecules where you could derive some peptides, you see. And the answer is that you really need the whole configuration. That's just an example for the modeling, you see, of new molecules. I think that also AI will be extremely useful for the design of the clinical studies. When you really want to target the numbers of patients, the way you want to organize your protocol, that's really very useful. There are many, actually, many use.
So I want to talk about kind of your exit strategy. You're not taking these drugs all the way to market and attempting, to sell them. Talk a little bit more about your strategy of getting to a certain point and then licensing these drugs.
Yeah, that's really the important point. You see, diabetic neuropathy and Alzheimer are really unmet medical needs. Although you have some, I didn't have time to show the slide, you know that we have some monoclonal antibodies for Alzheimer, but their efficacy is debated, there are side effects. So the reason why I mentioned this is that all what the experts tell us is that if in a phase 1b/2a, we are able not only to demonstrate against the safety, but we know already the safety, but to have some exploratory objective which show the efficacy, even if it is these are early studies, that will be a breakthrough. So it means that with this phase 1b/2a in 2028, we will be in contact with pharmas, and either we will have a partnership with them with contracts, or there will be an acquisition. That's really so the model is really not to go for large phase 2 and even less phase 3 studies, but really to generate a proof of concept on a molecule which is completely new and which can act as an add-on the existing candidate treatments for diabetes, neuropathy, and for Alzheimer. That's really the strategy.
Fantastic. Thank you, Christian, for being on the call today. And well, obviously, we'll be seeing his presentation along with his slides post-event. Thank you, Christian. So
Thank you.
next up, we another great company out of USF, Mark Connell. Are you there, Mark?
I am, Scott.
Awesome. So why don't you get your slides ready? You've got to watch a few people in action. So let me do this. Let me know when you get your slide in slideshow mode. And you should be good to go. All righty. 3,
We're looking
2.
good.
Yep, looking great. 3, 2, 1, go.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Mark Connell, the president of SLBST Pharma, and we are transforming endometriosis by targeting inflammation. We're looking to raise a $15 million Series A that will allow us to run a phase 2 clinical trial. And I'll mention here at the beginning, we're a USF company. So we're using technology developed at USF. Endometriosis is a huge problem. There are broadly prevalent, there are no good therapies, and there's no cure. It's a devastating disease. It affects 1 in 10 women worldwide. In the US, that's 7 million women. Endometriosis is the presence of endometrial tissue, so the lining of the uterus, but lining of the uterus that has escaped and is inside the abdominal cavity. So the disease is chronic, progressive, characterized by inflammation, and it causes severe pain. And for many women with endometriosis, this pain is debilitating. So severe pain, and half of patients have fertility problems. There's a huge unmet need. All therapies are hormonal, thus they're incompatible with fertility and pregnancy. 2/3 of women are dissatisfied with hormonal approaches. Surgery is a last resort, but it's not a cure. The majority of women who get surgery to remove endometrial lesions come back for multiple surgeries. Just to get a sense of the suffering of endometriosis patients, they use 3 times the number of opioids and twice the number of antidepressants compared to the general population. So our solution is we're repurposing the well-known immunomodulator hydroxychloroquine. And what we're looking to do is treat endometriosis immunologically rather than hormonally. Now, hydroxychloroquine is the principal therapy used to treat lupus, so systemic lupus erythematosus. In the U.S., it's roughly 87% of lupus patients take hydroxychloroquine on a long-term basis. So we've got decades of safety data there. What's interesting about hydroxychloroquine is it's got multiple modes of action that allow it to break the chain of endometriosis pathology at multiple points. So lesions originate from retrograde menstruation. Estrogen then drives lesion growth. The body's attempt to heal these lesions, which are futile, creates a chronic inflammation in the body, and that chronic inflammation leads to pain sensitization, and in half of women leads to infertility. So current treatments seek to break the chain by targeting estrogen. The great thing about hydroxychloroquine is it's hitting this chain of pathology at multiple points because it has multiple modes of action. Looking at the market, I mentioned that 7 million women in the US currently have endometriosis. If we take the usage rate of hydroxychloroquine among lupus patients, which is 87%, that gives us an addressable market of roughly 6 million women. There's a recent 2024 study based on a survey of 20,000 women in the US. 6.4% of those women self-reported that a doctor had told them they had endometriosis. So we've got a diagnosed population of roughly 4 million patients. We're looking to be, we're conservative. We're suggesting that we can obtain a market something on the order of 10% of the addressable market or 15% of the diagnosed market. We've got a super management team that can move this product through clinical trials and to the market. Our CEO, Dan Kim, has decades of experience in pharmaceutical commercialization. Our Chief Science Officer, Beat Wiedemann, led preclinical research at Novartis for multiple therapeutic areas. I've got both operational and entrepreneurial experience overseas in Southeast Asia and here in the US with multiple exits along the way. We've got some industry-leading advisors working with us. Our Chief Medical Officer, Lisa Halverson. Lisa was the first branch chief at the NIH for the Gynecologic Health and Disease branch. On the top right of the advisors, Alexander Kotlyar. Dr. Kotlyar is going to be our principal investigator. He's a key opinion leader, a very, very strong reproductive endocrinologist. We've got key relationships with top organizations, including the Patient Advocacy Group, Endometriosis Foundation. Stacy Mismer, the president of World Endometriosis Society, is working with us, and Linda Griffith at the MIT Center for Gynepathology Research.
Why don't we stop there? We'll leave that slide up, and we can jump into some Q&A. So if you have a question for Mark, you can raise your hand in chat, and I'll call on you. So Mark, you're looking to raise 15 million over the next 30 months. It looks like you've raised about $500,000 so far, and you're currently raising 15 million in this round. Is that correct?
That's correct, Scott. So we've raised $500,000 to take us through the pre-IND. We've got clearance from FDA to begin the phase 2B clinical trial. We're looking to raise $15 million and expect we can complete that trial in the next 30 months. And much like Christian, at the end of this 30 months, once we have this prospective data, we believe that could flip the card for an acquisition.
Okay. So are you planning to not take this to market yourself, or are you going to get the product, to a certain level and either sell the company or license, the drug and the technology?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have both in our planning. So we've got as you can see here, we've got a course that will take us $40 million, 6 years will get us to product approval and ready for launch. But at some point along the way, if we get an offer from if an acquirer comes in and says, "Hey, look, we'd like to take you out, and we will take the rest of the way," we can work with that as well. So we're ready for either or.
Good. So maybe I think you mentioned it before. Maybe you can expand on the competitive landscape. What other companies are developing drugs for this affliction?
Sure. So as I said, all the existing therapies are hormonal. The baseline therapy is just hormonal birth control. Over the last few years, there's some stronger hormonal medications that have come to market. AbbVie has a product called Orlissa. Sumitomo has a product called Myfembree. The problem with those is they cut off estrogen. They chemically induce menopause, leading to bone loss. So hormonal pathways have a lot of complications. There are a number of companies that are trying other non-hormonal approaches, but no one is particularly far along. No one's particularly far along. The great thing about what we're doing is we've got a drug that's fully de-risked. It has a great safety profile with decades of safety data, and based on the lupus use case, where 87% of lupus patients take it, we believe, as we said, we can improve the lives of 6 million women. From the day we get approval, we could be in the market and improving lives. So that's a it's strongly de-risked is the way to describe it.
Great. Thank you for that presentation. Awesome. Thank you. You can unshare your screen. Next up, we've got Arnold from SPKL. Arnold, are you there?
I'm here.
All right.
Yeah,
You can share
let
your
me
screen. We'll get you
get
started.
this going. Can you guys see that?
I can see it just fine. All righty. I'll count you down. 3, 2, 1, go.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us today. I'm Arnold Estrada. I'm the CEO and co-founder of SPKL. We're a pre-seed startup, also out of USF. We develop portable blood flow monitoring technology and are currently focusing on a device for real-time stroke identification in the field. As you may know, stroke is the #1 cause of disability and is also one of the top 5 causes of death worldwide. Stroke is a time-critical problem. Around 1.9 million neurons are lost every minute a large stroke goes untreated. Yet today, treatment has to be delayed for sometimes up to 2 hours in rural areas. And the reason for that is that strokes are either caused by a blockage of a blood vessel that feeds the brain or an internal bleed in the brain. And you can make things much worse if you treat for the wrong type. So treatment has to be delayed until the person is transported to a hospital, imaged under a CT scanner to confirm the type of stroke. And there are currently 0 good methods to identify stroke in the field. I know that's a bold sounding statement, but this is not just our opinion. This is a well-known issue. In fact, the latest American Health Association guidelines have put out a call for the development of a method to detect large vessel occlusions before the patient gets to the hospital. We're building a device to solve this problem. Our device uses safe amounts of near-infrared laser light. It's low cost and fast. We believe we can achieve hospital-grade stroke identification, but with a portable form factor. What you see here is an AI rendering of the final embodiment of our device. It consists of a reusable reader that houses the laser and also consumable patches with detectors that you see on the person's forehead there. The way our device can identify stroke type is by taking measurements from both sides of the forehead. Large blockages show a pronounced flow difference from left to right hemisphere. Bleeds do not. So this data is from one of our publications from a person receiving treatment by one of our clinical collaborators for narrowing of their left carotid artery. We collected this data with one of our research grade instruments, which is the size of like a mini fridge, definitely too big to be portable. The data show a clear flow difference between the hemispheres. You can see the left hemisphere flow in red is around 40% of the flow in the right hemisphere, which you see in blue, while the stent is being applied. So while the stent is being applied, this mimics a large vessel occlusion. And this device can easily detect this, as you can see from the data. Our device that we're building is essentially a miniaturization of this research grade device. The value that we would be monetizing is preservation of health span after stroke, since treatment can be started much earlier with our device, potentially as soon as EMS arrive on the scene. If we consider only EMS companies and urgent care facilities and assume that we can reach 40% of those and we can be used for 40% of the strokes, our obtainable market size is around $800 million in revenue per year. That revenue would be generated by selling the reader for $10,000 and the patches for $100. For our team, we have myself, CEO and co-founder. I have 15 years of medtech experience. I'm a two-time founder of consulting companies with employees in the medtech space. I have a PhD in biomedical optics. Ashwin is the CSO and co-founder. He's a professor at USF with 15 years of blood flow imaging expertise in academia, is an NSF career awardee and the inventor. We also had advisors. Lanisa is our regulatory strategy advisor. She has 10 years of regulatory experience, PhD in biomedical engineering, did her postdoc at Harvard Medical. Karthik is our business strategy advisor, 13 years of medtech experience, MBA from Wharton School of Business. And we also have clinical collaborators that have been working with us on the academic side, as well as getting a lot of good advice from Doug from USF and TTO. We've been a company for a few years now, but progress has really accelerated since I quit my job last September to focus on Speckle full time. So far, we've participated in NSF I-Core program. We've already been awarded 2 of the 4 patents we've applied for. We published a couple journals describing our technology and are now in the second iteration of our lab prototype. With that prototype, we've collected some good data, proving that we can see cerebral blood flow on par or even slightly better than that large research grade device I referred to earlier. We also recently were awarded a Bragg Pitch Competition Award. We are asking for $720K in exchange for a safe with no cap. That would give us 1.5 years of runway. With that money, we'll be able to develop 3 clinical prototypes, use those clinical prototypes to verify accuracy in measuring large vessel occlusions in a multi-center study. We'll also verify product market fit by talking to more EMS companies and doctors and solidify our regulatory strategy and market strategy. So far, we've been completely bootstrapped with the exception of winning $60K in a few pitch competitions. Right. With that, I'd say thank you for listening. We're hoping you'll want to join us in saving lives and increasing health span. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Arnold. So a couple questions I have, and if someone else has a question, feel free to raise your hand. And in a couple of minutes, I'm going to call on one of our investors who's specifically involved in medical. He just joined the call, but I'll get to Junaid in a minute. So quick question. Obviously, your technology is trying to save them from strokes while they're having a stroke. Is there anything that you can do to get them early in the process? Obviously, you're getting them very early. You're getting them before, as soon as EMS gets there. Is there any applications with this technology to find out earlier through a smartwatch or other technology?
I'm very glad you asked that question. I alluded to the fact that we're actually a company that's commercializing a blood flow measurement technology. We're actually right now looking at focusing on the stroke problem, but we can use our technology also to just do monitoring, like consumer health monitoring. And we think that eventually, by looking at the blood flow profile per heartbeat, there's a lot of information in the data per heartbeat, which we can see with our prototype. We're pretty sure that with AI algorithms and looking at people's flow profiles per heartbeat over time, that it would be possible to potentially predict heart attacks, potentially predict strokes. Strokes can be more difficult to predict because oftentimes they're triggered by a certain event, like a blood clot breaks free, as opposed to like a heart attack can sometimes be seen because you can see narrowing of arteries happening over time. So yeah, we think it's possible, especially more for the heart attack, potentially for stroke.
Gotcha. So obviously you're going after, I saw the who of how you're going, how your market. How are you going to reach out to them? What's going to be your sales strategy to get to these EMS and other folks?
Yeah, right now we're planning on selling directly to the EMS companies and urgent care facilities. we're definitely going to bring in some expertise to help us round out our strategy there and figure out how to do the marketing and get to them.
Awesome. Well, great. Thanks for that presentation. Just a minute, I'm going to have Denis from Quantum Clocks. But before I do that, I wanted to bring on, introduce one of our investors who just joined the call, Junaid of 1435 Ventures. He has a very interesting thesis and take on biotech and investing and the technology around that. So I wanted to introduce him and let him share a bit about it. Junaid, are you there?
Yeah, I'm right here, Scott. How you doing?
Awesome. Junaid, why don't you tell we've had several pharma and biotech companies present, but I wanted them to know who you were and share a little bit about what your background is and what you're doing at 1435, and and maybe talk about the space portion for a moment or two, because I think it's very intriguing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Junaid Mian. I'm a pharmacist, entrepreneur, floor trader, and now an angel. I was an angel investor, now investor at 1435. We primarily invest in tech, but I'm doing the biotech here. My thesis is that that we're tackling age-related diseases through Earth and space-based biotech, and the role that space plays in most of this is more like a platform. So everybody knows about the ISS. It will be coming down in about a few short years, about 2030, maybe 31. In its place, starting next year, are commercial space stations, also known as CLDs. And those space stations are literally space labs that will be doing a lot of innovative research and development and manufacturing. And so we're not just focused on space in the fund, our BioFrontiers fund. It is just another thing that we're looking at that terrestrial companies can use to either make better products or even I would say novel products that you just can't make on Earth.
I appreciate that. Yeah, and I had Junaid on my podcast or interviewed him earlier this week or last, and it was really fascinating his approach to investing and the future technology of pharma and biotech. So because we have a number of companies that are presenting today, I thought it was important to reach out to you and just let them know that you're out there, and then I'll be sending out the pitch decks to all the companies, to Junaid or other investors. But I just wanted to reach out to him for just a second. Thanks for joining our call today.
Hey, thanks, Scott, for having me.
Appreciate it. All righty. Our next up, actually, there we go. If we can have Denis, are you there?
I'm here.
Awesome. He's up next. I have learned more about quantum clocks in the last week than I've known in the history of my life. And so Denis has a really great take on it. So Denis, why don't you share your screen and tell them what you're doing? All right, I'm going to count you down. 3, 2, 1, go.
My name is Denis Karaiskaj. I'm a co-founder and the CEO of Quantum Silicon Clocks. This is a startup company out of the University of South Florida. So what's the problem that our technology solves? We are a PNT company, which stands for Position, Navigation, and Timing. And right now we are focusing on the timing portion of the PNT. So what we want to do is navigation without GPS. This is the case where GPS is not accessible or you have GPS denial. GPS not accessible is for oil and gas exploration. If you're exploring underwater, naturally you don't have GPS. Or let's say a car goes through a tunnel, it loses GPS. It needs to hold its timing very accurately in order to regain GPS on the other side of the tunnel. But also it's important for military application, GPS denial. If satellites are all damaged or fried during a war situation, you want to have GPS navigation without the GPS help. So what we find, what we want to do in long term is have position navigation timing, navigation basically without the need for GPS, with all in a silicon chip, with the microprocessor that calculates its own position and navigation. The timing part of this is achieved by an atomic clock. An atomic clock is a device that measures time very accurately and based on constants of nature, rather than a mechanical clock that can drift over time. So what is our solution? The solution that we bring is the so-called SWAP, C, which means a low size, weight, power, and cost. These are the limiting quantities for atomic clocks to work. And so you can see here on the left is our first prototype. It's an atomic clock on a silicon chip, and our competitor on the right-hand side is an atomic clock based on atomic vapors that runs at 2,000 for high quantity to 5,000 per unit, whereas our product can be sold for about $100 per unit for large quantities. And in fact, the production cost is only half of that. So what are the markets that we would target? Of course, as I mentioned before, military communications, our share of market would be about $40 million, and underwater oil and gas exploration, which is by far the biggest market of the THAC, our competitor nowadays, it's about $15 million. But long term, we want to, by reducing cost, we would like to expand our markets to, in total, they would go close to $500 million, and the automotive market would be the largest component of that. We have contacts in the government, Air Force, Special Operations Command, Navy, and also we have contacts in oil and gas exploration, automotive, and also computing. And these are some of the companies that we will target for sales. Our cost per unit would be about half of the sales price, which is $100, and the entire market generated would be about $500 million. We have also identified our key manufacturers. We have a fabs facilities here in Florida and other facilities that we need outside. So the last thing I would like to state is the team that we have. So what is unique about our team is that we have experts in both semiconductors and atomic clocks. Myself and my CDO have worked for over 20 years in this field, and this is something unique we share, that we know semiconductors and we know atomic clocks. And my CDO and co-founder, Steve, has actually worked and sold the competitor, the THAC, to a lot of these buyers that I've listed before. Our technology is protected by patents, and we have already received funding from a couple of entities. And our phase one would finish the physics package, and we're looking for an investment around $300K. And this is our contacts. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks for that presentation, Denis. If you have a question, raise your hand in chat. My first question is, you mentioned some of the industries, obviously oil and gas, and the others. Maybe expand what your application is. You mentioned the automotive industry. Maybe share what the potential longer term applications are, to sell into that market. And then, chips in general. Obviously, NVIDIA and all these chip companies are getting, all the press and all the recognition lately. So maybe kind of share how those two are engaged in the process.
So first of all the numbers that we have about these markets are very accurate because my co-founder sold the THAC to this this company. So we want to replace the THAC with our chip designed clock. Silicon is the material that all electronics is made. So if you can make an atomic clock based on silicon or position navigation timing based on silicon, you can integrate it very easily into existing semiconductor devices and the semiconductor industry, which should answer your last question of semiconductor industry being in the news nowadays. Military, for example, another application is if you're in the field, you can lose GPS, and it's very important for people in the field to keep timing in order to, when they get to GPS again, that they can not navigate, can find position and all that stuff. So that's what the THAC has been covering so far. But it's much larger, uses a lot more power, and it's not as reliable. So this is what we want to replace. And another application for that is oil and gas. If you are, I don't know how many feet underground and underwater, you don't have GPS. And this oil exploration is very expensive. So what they want is they want to be able to get position without GPS, and therefore they need these atomic clocks. So, and they buy a lot of them because they have this, in order to find positions, they have this units that they put a grid of units that is a very small spaced over a large area. So they put a lot of these atomic clocks out there to get together with other sensors and other devices to get positioning in the absence of GPS.
Correct.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thanks, Dennis. Another question regarding, obviously you've got a good team from the technology standpoint. What is going to be your sales strategy? How are you going to penetrate these markets in both the short term and long term? What is your go-to-market or sales strategy?
So again, my CEO, Steve, that's what he has done before. So he has all the contacts. He has sold THACs to these people, so he knows where the markets and the people are. So we'll eventually hire a business person. Right now, we want to be very conservative with our funding, but we'll hire a business person to eventually go in that direction.
Thanks for that presentation, Dennis. Appreciate it. You can unshare your screen. So our last company presentation prior to our call with Justworks is Katharine. Katharine, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Awesome. I can hear you just fine. So why don't you share your screen and show us your slides? Alrighty, getting slideshow mode. All right, I'm going to count you down. 3, 2, 1, go.
I'm Katharine. I'm here to tell you about MediMirror, the startup company that I founded for the world's first polarized light mirror. MediMirror is a consumer product in the prototype phase of development that brings the power of polarized light out of the dermatology office and into the consumer's home. It will allow users to see their own skin in an unprecedented detail. Many conditions can be seen like this, everything from wrinkles to pigmentary issues and vascular conditions as well. No other product like this exists, setting it up to be a disruptive technology. The general product design has a very futuristic feel, which you can see in the model. Objective skin viewing is at the heart of the problem. When we look in the mirror, our reflection depends on the ambient light surrounding us or on the LED from the mirror. These are inconsistent and not polarized light sources. By using polarized light, we can actually get a truly objective view of our own skin, and we can see features that are even difficult for our eyes to pick up on. MediMirror has a split down the middle, so that half of the reflection will show the upper layers and the other half will show the deeper layers. Users would clearly see deeper color and pigment on one half, and on the opposite half, the surface features like wrinkles, texture, and pores are accentuated. Users could catch issues early before they become noticeable. They can track treatment progress and monitor for results or skin healing. Other tissue can be seen as well with enhanced details such as the iris color, the teeth, and the gums. My background is in skin imaging, where I worked in dermatology for over 12 years. And during that time, I developed ways to photograph the different layers of the skin with polarized light, which led me to want to design a consumer product that could do something similar. I realized how important polarized light was to dermatologists, and I also knew that it would be really helpful if people could actually see their own skin with the same level of enhanced details. The IP behind MediMirror has a patent pending with USF, and the company was recently awarded a BRAG grant from USF Research Foundation. Consultation with SBDC is underway, and an advisory panel is currently being formed with both dermatologists and early adopters. The goal is to close this gap in the market by targeting educated consumers of skincare products. By combining this advanced polarization technology with the surging landscape of medical aesthetics, a successful business model is formed. People are hyper aware of their skin's appearance. Procedures and skincare products are just more popular than ever before. Besides the increase in use of injectables, like Botox, for example, many consumers have a more open-minded viewpoint on cosmetic procedures in general than they did just a few years ago. The dramatic increases in cosmetic and medical aesthetics is not only driven by these expectations for aging and maintaining a youthful appearance, but also the increased safety and availability of different treatment options. The cost of many of these procedures has come down so that more middle-class consumers can afford them. Cosmetic facial procedures are not reserved for the rich and famous nowadays. Everyone, including men and teens, are part of this market share. Men and teens used to only represent a fraction of the medical aesthetics market, but they now consume more products and procedures than before. The global skincare market is expected to exceed $200 billion as a whole next year, and these consumers are all potential MediMirror users. MediMirror is estimated to cost between $25 to $40 to make. It's estimated to retail for between $250 to $400. These margins will place it in a successful track for sales forecasting. The company expects to be profitable in year 2, with estimated profit margins between 80 and 90%. In year 3, with 200,000 users, sales projections approach the $50 million mark. MediMirror needs robust early support so that the product launch can be strong and we can secure the market with various forms of advertising. The funding goal is $200,000. This would ensure that the first manufacturing runs get covered, and it will be used for a strategic marketing campaign. With both social media and television ads planned, a wide age range of users can be targeted. The grant funding received is already for the prototype completion, and we are seeking enthusiastic early investors to finish our funding goals. Thank you.
Awesome, great. If you have a question, raise your hand in chat. I have specifically, Katharine, towards, how you're going, you mentioned, what you're going to do in marketing, but maybe share, in your opinion, is this going to be done direct to consumer, online? Obviously a lot of products are sold online. Are you going to be doing distribution channels with influencers or, retail? Maybe share about what your thoughts are and how you're going to go to market with this.
Yes, so the initial plan is to go to market direct to consumer via a website, simply because that's the lowest hanging fruit. Sure. The real plan is to get a partnership deal with someone like a Sephora, a Ulta, a Target, because having this product on the shelf will actually get people to buy it more easily than looking at pictures of it online. I think the tangible product would make for a fantastic display, because if you're shopping for makeup, you're always looking for a mirror in the makeup store anyway. I'm sure many people on this call can relate. And having MediMirror in the actual makeup store while you're trying on makeup, right there would be a huge sales opportunity, a huge marketing opportunity. And it's a relatively compact device. It's not large. So I do think some strategic displays in makeup aisles is going to launch it even further than what I can do with social media or with a website.
So do you think that, you said it's a small mirror. Is this like a compact, or is it going to be a table mirror? Where do you think you're positioning this?
The size of the mirror is around 8.5 inches. This is around the size of the face. We don't really want something much bigger because the physics of the light actually would make it such that it wouldn't have as nice of an effect if in fact it was too big or too small.
Okay. Is working with influencers in the beauty and care space part of your strategy?
Yeah, my background is in dermatology. So I initially go straight for the physicians and the academic kind of side of this. But the reality is that that's a smaller market than what we're going to be able to achieve with skinfluencers. And I am not a skinfluencer. So I will absolutely be looking for key partnerships with younger and older men, women, teens, really anyone, all skin types can benefit from this. So trying to find a diverse group of skin influencers that can really hit this out of the park with the social media campaign will be a very near goal of mine.
Fantastic. And obviously you had a lot of logos on some of these partners and some of the folks in the space. Of those, who, if any, would be potential acquirers down the line, in your opinion?
So the kind of companies that are looking at to acquire a company like mine will be L'Oreal. It would be Unilever. It will be, I had a list on one of the slides of the big kind of beauty heavy hitters in cosmetics. The other potential acquisition would be with a pharmaceutical company, since there are applications for looking at skin diseases, especially things like vitiligo. There are new drugs on the market for vitiligo. So a partnership with a drug company is not out of the question.
Interesting. Ken McPherson, I'm not sure you had your hand up for a second. You have a question, Ken? Maybe you got it answered. Awesome. Well, thank you, Katharine, for that presentation. And thank you for all the companies that presented today. So we'll be sending out, yeah, jump in, Ken.
Sorry to interrupt. Do you see a recurring revenue stream? Like, is this a one and done, or do you see a add-on stream for any kind of services or anything related to recurring rev in above having to sell a product over and over again?
Yeah, thank you, Ken. So the plan for not having a one and done is to have an integrated app. The integrated app could recommend products based on the feature that the consumer is concerned about, right? So if you're worried about dry skin, it may be able to recommend you a moisturizer. If you have an actual skin disease, it may be able to recommend for you to see a dermatologist. Furthermore, there would be a second generation plan that integrates a camera. Once the camera becomes integrated, this will now become a standard for skin photography, so that we don't have to continue seeing people fake pictures and have terrible angles and different lighting, and not really being able to evaluate a before and after picture. So the before and after pictures is a little further down the road, but that will be another add-on that will keep a consumer base with a family of products.
And do you see any integration into like a med tech, and would that require like a 510K or anything like that?
That's not the goal. If someone who was interested in acquiring this company wanted to make it a medical technology and get clearance, I would have a lot of great recommendations about skin diseases that can benefit from this. But because the initial goal is to sell it to consumers, I'm avoiding that strategy for the moment.
Awesome. Thanks for that question, Ken. Thanks, Katharine, for the presentation. So we're going to close with two things. One, I'm going to have Nick Contrino from Justworks share a little bit about what their offering is and their opportunities for entrepreneurs. And then I'm going to open up the chat. I'm going to open up Q&A. This will be your opportunity to ask me or anyone on our panel, anyone that spoke today, a question. And then obviously, if you want to share, something about yourself in chat, you're more than welcome to do that. So, so thank you, Katharine, and thank you all the companies that presented today. So I'm going to introduce my friend Nick Contrino at Justworks, and he has a great product, great service for growing entrepreneurs. So Nick, I'm going to let you take over right now. You there, Nick?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Hello, everyone, and great job to everybody that presented today. I know how to get up here and do that is never easy, especially for when you're asking for money. So great job, and hopefully you guys get all the funding that you're looking for, and even over subscribe in some of those cases. Let me share my screen, tell you a little bit about who we are at Justworks. So I'm Nick Contrino. I'm a partnership manager. I manage our capital markets. So mostly I spend time with our venture-backed startups or private equity owned startups and help them get access to kind of the best of HR technology. And there we go. Who are we? We help small businesses run with confidence. We actually only focus on small businesses. Unlike some of the other PEOs or payroll providers out there in the market, we feel like the folks that are in that 1 to 100 really need us more than anybody, and that's where we kind of like do our best work. outside of just being like a really easy to use tech platform and integrated into an all-in-one solution for payroll compliance, HR, and employee benefits, we're really a HR support system for those new founders. You don't know what you don't know. And when you start integrating or start hiring, I should say, into other states, every state likes to do business a little differently. So we kind of help you manage that curve. Who are we? We're a lot like the companies on this call, right? Or where hopefully you want to be someday, right? We raised $143 million over 7 seed rounds. We took our last bit of capital, I think it was early 2019, and have been profitable, thankfully, and really have kind of made it through these last 5 years of the COVID era in a really strong capacity. Companies see that PEO is a really strong opportunity for them to really go out there and grow their business without worrying about some of the hassles of that HR backend service. Some of the really other important things here. Today, we support 12,000 companies, represents about 175,000 lives. We're the largest consumer of Aetna benefits in the United States. So when we sit down with Aetna, they give us some pretty attractive rates, which means that gets sent over to our companies that can be as small as 2. The nice thing about working with a PEO, we get you access to benefits that are like that of Apple and Google. They're large group benefits, right? Which means you get access to more. So you can set up an attractive benefit package when you're from early on, when you're trying to build, building culture from hire one, basically. When you want to go after that next CTO, you want to go find that, like that really great engineer. Justworks is a really great opportunity to help you build that package. On the bottom there, you can see we're backed by some top investors. These folks help us make decisions about the companies that we work with today as well, right? So they sit on our board and they help us navigate how to help these small businesses in the best way possible. Sweet spot for us, we usually work with companies anywhere from 5 to 100. That's like really the best place to start quoting for your health insurance. 5 employees gives you a little bit better of a ratio than 2, right? If it's 2, hopefully you both have really, really good background in health, or one person can skew it. So 5 is really a good ratio for you to start looking at employee benefits for your company. It also gives you some real access to really good rates. Most companies that work with Justworks, average size is about 17 people. Right. And like I said before, we're getting them access to benefits that look like that of a 100,000 person company, which is really important when you're trying to build culture and build that kind of core group of people. On the bottom there, some of our target industries. As you can see, startups are our main focus for us, white collar tech. We have opened up our risk appetite quite a bit over the last couple of years to support more gray collar. So if there's some investors on the line that are looking at kind of acquisitions in like some of the, things like HVAC companies, things like boutique construction companies. We started supporting those over the last 24 months and can really give them some really great options. Justworks has 3 products. So we started as a PEO company where we did everything, and that's it, right? Over the last 24 months, we actually added in our payroll platform. We've been paying people for 13 years. So we decided to make an a la carte product to mirror that of some of our competitors out there. Gives a really easy to use platform, $50 a month, $8 per employee. Pay your contractors, pay your employees, really simply, right? Just get on there and you can kind of get your stuff rolling pretty quickly. PEO is a little bit more all-encompassing for those complex companies. When you start hiring in more than one state, when you need to start setting up state registrations, worrying about who's remitting taxes, things of that nature, Justworks will handle all of that for you. That's where you get, we have a flat rate, transparent flat rate, 2 different flavors here, right? Basic is all these things minus health insurance administration. Plus gives us health insurance administration, right? So there's no watered down version of Justworks. It's either with or without health insurance. We're also one of the only PEOs in the country that do that. The nice thing about that, it gives you ability to unbundle when you get over 100 people, right? Over 100 people in every state, you can go get large group benefits. So you may not need us anymore, right? But we still help you with the compliance, HR, and payroll side of it while you continue to figure that out and grow. The last piece is probably the fastest growing thing in HR these days. It's Justworks International or EOR. Today you can hire in 21 countries, and Justworks can support you without having to set up an entity in that country today. Okay. So these are the three things that Justworks offers. And as your companies continue to grow, you can look at this as kind of like a life cycle, right? You start with our payroll, start paying your people. As you need those benefits, you can move into our PEO platform. And then when you want to get access to the best and the best of the world, EOR really makes sense. So some of the things that we focus on, we don't have a million integrations, right? We think that these are the best in class for small businesses today. And we make it really easy. So for those companies you're investing in that need a cap table management, we think Carta is really great, right? Same thing, you want an expense platform that's a little more advanced than what we give you through Justworks, we think Brex is really great. We build these integrations with these companies directly. So these are not things that are unsupported, right? So if something is to break in the chain, both us and Brex is going to get together to fix this thing, right? So everything works seamlessly. And that's all I have for today. So any questions on what we're doing at Justworks?
Yeah, if you have a question, raise your hand in chat. What I'm going to do, I'm actually going to open up chat and do some open networking. And for everybody that's on the call that registered for the event today, I'm going to send a special offer to get engaged with Nick and Justworks after the call. So you all get that afterwards. So thanks a lot, Nick, for being on the call today. And I appreciate your help and for all these great entrepreneurs that we work with. So let's do this. I did open up chat again. So what I'd like to do now, if any of you have questions about anything that would happen today or anything about the company, if there's any investors who want to provide some feedback, I'd love to hear your feedback on the companies that presented today. And again, if you want to share a bit about yourself, feel free to post away in chat. This is your opportunity to engage. So, and so with that, I will, okay, we've got some people posting here. Okay. Sustainable Future Tech. Thank you for that, John. So quick show of hands. Who else on this call is raising capital? If you can either post it in chat or use the raise hand function. I'd love to get some feedback about where you are there. Okay, Dan. All right. Shaheen. Awesome. Raising capital. Lee. We've got several. Okay. So why don't you do, I'd like to, if you can lower your hands now, or if you are raising capital, why don't you post two things thanks for posting your contact, Dennis. You do a couple things. One, if you're raising capital, I'd like you to post in chat two things. One, if you've raised capital, tell us how much. And if you're raising, and also tell us a bit about, how much you're raising in capital, and maybe if you got a copy to your pitch deck or something along those lines, you can throw that in the chat because I want to make sure that we get everybody engaged today. So have you raised? Okay. Says are these folks actively raising? Who has at least brought on their first investor? Anybody? All right, Dan has raised 500. Congratulations. Awesome. Anybody else? Looking to raise $500,000. All right, fantastic. Congratulations on 100,000. Ron's looking to raise 750. Awesome. For all of you folks that are raising capital, what I'd like to do is I'm going to throw my name, my address in chat. And I have a whole series of startup tools, which includes pitch deck templates, videos, all kinds of tools that you need to be better prepared to raise capital. And so there's my email address. If you want, send me an email titled Startup Tools. I will send you a Google Drive link with a whole host of different fundraising tools and opportunities you can use. I'll also send you a link to our VC Fast Pitch YouTube page, which not only has our recordings such as this, but has webinars I've done with investors and other folks, so you can get some good interest and insight. All right, Lee, we're going to raise 1 million. Awesome. So let's do this. Is there anybody that wants to ask me a question or any of our folks today a question? If you can either raise your hand or unmute yourself and ask your question. All righty. Go ahead, Dan. I'll let you start.
All right, thanks. Great event, great presentation, some truly life-changing products out there. Wow. My question is to investors that are on board, how much of the weight of what goes into interest, how much does already being in revenue, and is there a benchmark for revenue that really kind of gauges the temperature of how interested you're in something versus the leadership or the need that it fills?
Well, I'll address that question first, and then obviously if we have some investors that want to chime in, I'll be frank with you, in this day and age, revenue is important. Obviously we have some early stage biotech companies and pharma companies that obviously have a long road to get to revenue. That said, it really depends on the investor themselves. And this is where I tell entrepreneurs all the time, you've got to do a very good job of building your list of the right investors. A lot of entrepreneurs will go out there and just go all over LinkedIn and just spam anybody that has investor or VC on their profile. That's a terrible approach. What you need to do, and I actually posted a webinar that I'll share with everybody, is how to build relationships and build your funnel. If you go to the VC Fast Pitch YouTube channel, you can find that. But part of it comes down is to building the right list. And what I mean by that is build the right list in terms of the stage of the company and the industry that they invest in. The reality is you're not going to convince a biotech investor to invest in your consumer product company and vice versa. You're not going to convince a later stage investor to invest in your pre-revenue startup. So you need to really, if you're early stage, you basically need to make sure that you are talking to typically strategic angel investors, angel groups, before you approach venture capital firms. The reality is you're going to get ghosted, you're going to get ignored, and you're going to get a very fast no, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But you want to make sure that you're efficient about your time as well as you are about their time. And so that's my feedback. Any of our investors want to address that? I know we got a few that are on the call. But that's my feedback on that. And like I said, Dan, I did a webinar with USF about a month ago, and it's on my YouTube channel, and it really talks about how you build a relationship while you're building your investor list. And it's some real effective tools because, investors, you have, it's almost important you have to have the relationship, but taking the relationship takes time. And I tell people all the time, and entrepreneurs all the time, is when they ask, well, when should I raise money? Or when should I start talking to investors? 6 months before you have to raise money. You need to build relationships first. And years ago, I was on the board of the Boys and Girls Club Foundation, and I was told that before you do fundraising, do friend raising. And so it's really about being targeted about that. So that's kind of my feedback on that, Dan. Thanks for that question.
Great, thank you. Thanks.
Have a question? We've got Arnold or Fino. Go ahead.
Yeah, so just actually two questions, but the first question is, our device we think is really going to make an impact in the world, and I'm wondering if there's a way to reach investors who maybe have been impacted by like this specific disease, like we're going after stroke, like is a resource where, hey, here's a family foundations or high net worth individuals who have an interest in this disease. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's again on a previous webinar I talked about how to find the right investors, and I think there's obviously some great online resources. LinkedIn is obviously a great resource if you market it correctly. You can take a look at things like AngelList, Crunchbase, Gust, where you can go into those databases and find folks that are in those industries and in that stage. But in terms of people that are impacted, I think one of the approaches that we've used is go to the associations that are involved in that. That, if people have been impacted by this disease, they are constantly providing content and outreach and speaking opportunities. And I think sometimes if you can get yourself participating in that, get yourself in the same room, not with just people that are impacted, but people that are impacted that have the fortitude and the ability and desire to invest. That'd be my feedback there.
Okay, cool. Real quick. Also, is it going to be possible for us to get the videos? By the way, thank you for the chance to speak here. It's so great, very well organized. Yeah, I was wondering if we can get the videos.
Yes. Actually, right after this call closes, Zoom will send me a link. I'll load it on my YouTube channel and I'll share that with everybody.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Any other questions I can answer for anybody else? Okay, we got a few things posting in chat. Awesome. So let's do this. You know what? I had a question about 510K on medical device, the MedTech. Ken, who was that question for? Do you remember? Or was it a general question, Ken?
I got to go back to my notes, and which I wasn't supposed to take. But they're
let's
high
do that.
level notes, not the kind where I'm
Not a problem.
betray you or do evil shit.
Ken, everybody else, we're going to be sending information on the companies, the presentation slides, and the link to the event today. So you and everyone else will be able to get an opportunity to that. We get that. Okay. All right. We are just about close for today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to thank you all for being on the call today. Like I said, look for an email from me coming probably tomorrow morning with startup resources, link to the our call today, information on our presenting companies, and some of the opportunities that are available through our partners at Flippa, Invest, and Justworks. And as I always say at the end of these calls, if there's something you didn't like, tell me. If there's something you loved, tell everybody else. And with that, I thank you all for joining and wish you all the very best of luck. Take care.
Thank you.